Hello, hello. Goodbye.
Hello, my friend. Before we begin tonight's story, I'd like you to get comfortable. Lumb your shoulders to relax, unclench your jaw, take a slow breath in, and gently let it go. I am Clara. Tonight's story is for anyone who has ever trusted someone completely, anyone who ignored the small warning signs because love felt safer than doubt. Anyone who eventually discovered that the person they were fighting for had quietly stopped fighting for them long ago. This is the story of a woman who thought she was building a future, until one ordinary evening revealed that she had been living inside someone else's goodbye. She had always believed that love was supposed to feel safe, not perfect, not effortless, but safe. The kind of safe where you could close your eyes and know the person beside you wasn't going anywhere. For 7 years she thought she had found that they shared an apartment, shared routines, shared dreams. Every morning began the same way: coffee, a quick conversation before work, a kiss goodbye, nothing dramatic, nothing extraordinary, just the quiet rhythm of two lives moving together. And maybe that's why she never saw it coming. Because betrayal rarely announces itself. It doesn't arrive with warning sirens. It arrives disguised as normal, high inside familiar routines, wearing the face you've trusted for years. Lately, though, something felt different, not wrong, just distant, like someone had slowly turned down the volume on their relationship. Conversations became shorter, affection became less frequent, the excitement that once filled their home had begun to fade. At first she blamed stress. Everyone gets stressed, everyone gets tired. Everyone goes through difficult periods, that's what she told herself again and again. Whenever the uncomfortable feeling appeared, whenever something seemed off, whenever her instincts whispered that something had changed. One night she finally asked him, "Are we okay?" The question hung in the air. He looked up from his phone and smiled, the same smile she trusted for years. "Of course we are, you worry too much." She laughed softly, embarrassed, relieved. Maybe she really was overthinking. Maybe she was imagining things. Maybe her anxiety was creating problems that didn't exist. After all, he said everything was fine, and when you love someone, you want to believe them. My friend, if you've ever ignored your instincts because someone convinced you that you were imagining things, I want you to know something. You weren't foolish, you were trusting. There's a difference. And people with good hearts often mistake trust for safety. Take a slow breath. You deserved honesty even when the truth was uncomfortable. Weeks passed. Life continued. Work, dinner, television, sleep. The relationship remained intact, at least from the outside, but sometimes she would catch him smiling at his phone, and when she asked what was funny, he'd lock the screen. Sometimes he seemed happier talking to other people than he did talking to her. Sometimes he'd stare into space with an expression she'd never seen before, as though his mind was somewhere else, somewhere she couldn't reach. Still, she pushed the feeling away because admitting something is wrong can be terrifying, especially when you've built your entire future around believing Day. The kind of day nobody remembers. The kind of day that never appears important until later, after dinner. He went upstairs to shower. She stayed in the kitchen cleaning dishes. The apartment was quiet. Comfortably quiet. The sort of silence that exists between people who have spent years together. His phone sat charging on the counter. She barely noticed it. She wasn't interested in checking it. She wasn't suspicious. She wasn't searching for answers, not yet. Then a voice message began playing through a connected speaker. Neither of them knew the phone had automatically connected. The message started unexpectedly. At first, she didn't pay attention. She assumed it was work or a friend or something insignificant. Then she heard laughter, a woman's laughter, bright, comfortable, familiar. Not the kind of laughter people share with strangers. Her hands froze over the sink. Something inside her chest tightened. Then she heard his voice, and immediately something felt wrong because he sounded different. Not just happy, alive, excited, engaged, like the version of him she'd been missing for months. The version she'd been trying desperately to reconnect with. The version she thought stress had stolen, but stress hadn't stolen it. Someone else had. The message continued. She stood motionless, unable to move, unable to think, unable to breathe properly. Then came the sentence that changed everything. I just need her to hold on a little longer. A pause, a laugh, and then, after that, I won't have to pretend anymore. The room became silent. The message ended. The speaker stopped. But her world didn't, because some sentences don't disappear after spoken. They echo again and again and again. She wasn't crying, not yet. She wasn't angry, not yet. She simply stood there trying to understand what she had heard, trying to convince herself there was another explanation, trying to find any possible version of reality where those words meant something else. But deep down, she already knew. Sometimes the hardest moment isn't discovering the truth. It's realizing that the truth confirms what your heart has known all along. That quiet feeling, that instinct, that discomfort you've been carrying for months. Suddenly, it all makes sense, and that clarity can be devastating. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. When he came downstairs, everything looked normal. The same face, the same clothes, the same smile. Yet somehow he looked like a stranger. A complete stranger wearing the face of someone she loved. She wanted to confront him immediately. She wanted answers, but something stopped her. Maybe shock, maybe fear, maybe the part of her that wasn't ready to hear the full truth. So she said nothing, and that night she barely slept. Over the next few days, she began paying attention, not spying, not searching, simply observing, and suddenly everything became obvious. The late-night messages, the unexplained schedule changes, the emotional distance, the way he seemed absent even while sitting beside her. The evidence had always been there. Love had simply blurred her vision. Then she discovered something even more painful. The affair wasn't new. It had been going on for nearly a year. A year, 12 months, 365 days while she planned birthdays, while she bought gifts, while she ways that would have been easier. This was emotional, strategic, planned. He wasn't confused. He wasn't uncertain. He had made his decision long ago. He simply hadn't informed the person whose life would be destroyed by it. Imagine discovering that someone had quietly packed their emotional bags months before leaving. Imagine learning that every promise made during that time was spoken by someone who already knew they wouldn't keep it. That's what hurt, not the ending. The pretending, the realization that while she was investing deeper into the relationship, he was already withdrawing. A week later, she learned something worse, much worse. Other people knew, his sister knew. His closest friend knew, several co-workers knew, people she'd shared dinners with, people who smiled at her, people who asked about wedding plans, people who hugged her, all carrying the same secret, all participating in the same silence. And suddenly the betrayal became larger. It wasn't one person anymore. It was a room full of people deciding she wasn't entitled to the truth. A room full of people watching her build a future that didn't exist. A room full of people who knew she was the only one still living inside the relationship. My friend, if you've ever discovered that others knew what you didn't, I understand why that hurts, because it makes you question everything. Not only the relationship, but your judgment, your trust, your ability to read people. Please remember this. Their dishonesty was not evidence of your weakness. It was evidence of theirs. Eventually, she confronted him, not dramatically, not angrily, just honestly. She told him what she'd heard. She told him what she knew. And for a moment, he looked relieved, as though a burden had finally been lifted, as though she had solved a problem for him. That realization hurt almost as much as the betrayal, because while she was experiencing the worst night of her life, he was experiencing freedom. He apologized, sort of. The vague kind of apology people give when they regret consequences more than actions. He said things had become complicated. He said he never meant to hurt her. He said he still cared, but none of it mattered. Because caring isn't measured by words, it's measured by choices. And his choices had already spoken. A few days later, he moved out. 7 years packed into boxes, reduced to cardboard and silence. The apartment felt strange afterward. Too quiet, too empty, too large. Every object reminded her of a life that no longer existed. The first few weeks were brutal. She cried unexpectedly at grocery stores, in traffic, while folding laundry. Grief doesn't follow schedules. It arrives whenever it wants, sometimes in waves, sometimes in whispers, sometimes in moments that seem completely ordinary. She replayed every memory, matching for the exact moment everything changed, the exact moment she lost him, the exact moment the relationship stopped being real. But eventually she realized something important. There wasn't one moment. The ending hadn't happened suddenly. It happened gradually, quietly, over time. And she wasn't responsible for stopping it, because you cannot save a relationship by yourself. 2 people are required to build it, and 2 people are required to protect it. Months passed. Slowly the pain began changing shape, not disappearing, changing, becoming less sharp, less constant, less overwhelming. One evening she sat alone in her apartment, the same apartment she once feared being alone in, the same apartment that had felt unbearably empty. And for the first time, she felt peaceful. Not happy, not healed, just peaceful. She realized something surprising. The relationship ending wasn't the hardest part. The waiting had been, the confusion, the self-doubt, the endless questioning, the constant effort to earn love. Someone who had already stopped giving it. That was the exhausting part, and now it was over. The truth had taken something from her, but it had also given something back. Clarity, freedom, self-respect, a chance to stop fighting for someone who had already surrendered. And perhaps that is the hidden gift inside every painful ending, not the loss, the release. The moment you finally stop carrying a weight that was never yours to carry. Tonight, wherever you are, if someone has betrayed your trust, if someone made you feel disposable, if someone convinced you that you were difficult to love, I want you to hear this clearly. Their inability to appreciate your love does not determine its value. The wrong person can stand in front of a masterpiece and see nothing. That does not diminish the masterpiece. You were never asking for too much. You were asking the wrong person. You were never too sensitive. You were responding to something real. You were never difficult to love. You were simply offering your heart to someone who had stopped holding it carefully. And maybe the apology never comes. Maybe the explanation never arrives. Maybe they move on without fully understanding what they destroyed. But closure does not belong to them. It belongs to you. Because closure isn't receiving answers. Closure is accepting that some people will never become the person you needed them to be. Closure is choosing peace over explanation. Closure is realizing that your future does not require their understanding, only your own. So tonight, let your shoulders relax. Take one more slow breath and remember, someone else's betrayal is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their character. You survived the truth, and that means you can survive what comes next. Right now, the waiting is over, the questioning is over, the pretending is over, and somewhere ahead of you, peace is already making its way home. Good night.